Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rich Bowers, and this is Microbytes. Today, on our conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about Google Bard. And before I introduce our subject matter expert to dive right into all of that, just a quick refresher, or maybe this is your first time listening to our Microbytes podcast. During these conversations, we have a little bit shorter discussions. Maybe around 10, 15, 20 minutes where we talk about a specific topic and we go pretty much in detail, but a little bit more focused than some of our other conversations that may span across a variety of different topics in that overall subject. So with that being said, to talk a little about Google Bard, our subject matter expert, Charles Dunn, is here. Good morning, Charles. How are you doing?
Good morning, Rich. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So, Charles, starting off, obviously we have Google Bard. They had their big showing, a few weeks ago, where they highlighted all their different features, remove the wait list, etc. To kind of get started, what is Bard? What makes it so special? And love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So Bard is the chatbot. Specifically, Bard uses Google's in-house large language model to simulate dialogue, to simulate human responses. And Bard itself is the chat interface of that language model. If you think about it with ChatGPT, ChatGPT is powered by GPT-3 or 4, depending on which version of ChatGPT you're using. So GPT-4 is the language model. ChatGPT is the bot that you're talking with. In Bard, Google is using their Palm language model, and Bard is the chatbot that you're interacting with.
Okay. All right. So that makes sense. So chatbot, Bard, etc., right, is going to be what we're engaging with. And then behind the scenes is going to be, for instance, I think Palm 2 was the one they released, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we dive in a little bit about Palm 2. So I know when I was looking at the I/O conference by Google, they were really hyped up about the Palm 2. Did you get to see what some of the differences are between their first rollout and where they are with Palm 2?
So a big thing that they were emphasizing is that Palm 2 is going to be it's going to be better at advanced reasoning, which is it's going to be the phrase that they use a lot, multimodal. It will understand one modality and translate it into another. Okay, what does that mean? So one of the things that I have been using it the most for is translating human text to code. So that modality, human text, to the other modality, a code snippet that accomplishes what I asked for in human language. So if you think back to the microbyte on Copilot, that's one example. But what Google specifically has as an institution has an advantage here is that they have a lot of tools that they can integrate with this with. They already have Google Translate, Google Maps, Google Drive suite of technologies. So to be frank, a lot of what Google is pushing here feels like they want to remind people that they've been using machine learning and generative AI for a long time. They've actually been using this technology. They've been incorporating this into their technologies for a while now. And now that, OpenAI has kind of like blown the lid off of this as a marketing tool, Google is saying, hey, we have all of this stuff too. So, for example, they are advertising multi-language translation. using Google Translate. They're advertising the ability to take a search result and automatically add the results of that search to your Google Drive. Or another big one is Knowledge Graph. What that is something you might, if you've used Google search, you're probably familiar with this. You enter a Google search, and on the left side of the screen, well, personally, I almost always use Google search on desktop because I'm not quite on the use smartphones for everything by default generation. So I'm still using the desktop. So on the desktop interface, there's the little pane on the left that just has the most relevant results for what you just searched for. And Google, once again, has had this feature for a while. This feature is powered by machine learning because they are trying to find most relevant information, at a glance, what you are looking for, and display that to you by default along with optimized search results for whatever your query is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a lot of information right there. So Charles, let's go back and unpack a few things, right? But definitely you can tell, obviously you spent some time with this. Yes. First off, the Palm 1 to Palm 2, for those of us that are more familiar with, say, ChatGPT, because it's, in our face every day, all day long, that would be similar to, ChatGPT 3 going to ChatGPT 4 in essence. Correct. That's a quick way of looking at it.
Yeah, you can think of it like that.
Okay, cool. And then so with Google Bard on Palm 2, you mentioned multimodal, right?
Yes.
And you using prompt text to go into coding, which is really cool. I want to get into that in a second. Mm-hmm. For those of us who may not be developers, coders, or running a data program, something that we could potentially use it for is creating images. Is that correct?
Yes. Google is rolling out their text to image generator. Cool. And another thing that Google has been emphasizing is that it's a word you're going to see in all their marketing copy is responsible. Google's like, we are doing responsible AI. We're going to use responsible generators. Our text generators are responsible. And the way Google seems to be doing this from my perspective is adding the word responsible to all of its marketing copy and then just doing what everyone else is doing. So, okay, that's a bit cynical. What they are doing is one thing that they featured in their show was that if an image is generated by this Google generator tool, the metadata will say that. So this image cannot be distributed as is without evidence that it was created by Google. So
responsible.
That is responsible. Unfortunately, there is a very simple workaround where you could take a screenshot of what's the image that's been generated, and that screenshot doesn't contain the metadata. But again,
are we talking about NFTs here or
yes, yeah, it's like
so real quick with responsible, I mean, it makes sense they're going to go and use that word as much as possible. This is the company whose slogan was "Do no evil,"
right? Until they remove that.
Yes. So okay, cool. And then as we're referencing the show, the IO show, really good. I know they mentioned that there was lens detections on images. So not only can you take a prompt text to create an image, but then Google Bard can then take that image and make, say, captions for it, right? Yes. Which is pretty cool.
Yes. So that is a feature. That's a feature that I'm pretty excited about, where yes, it's clever and fun to go from text to image, but the other way around has a lot of potential. Image to text, to look at an image, understand what it is, and explain it in text, which not only has, as you said, captions, it can identify features, in an image that might not be readily available. But another big thing is accessibility. Someone who you can auto-generate descriptions of an image for people who cannot see it.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
that is something that I think that's just good. That is
Yeah.
just a good feature to
Oh,
have.
yeah, no, I'm excited about that and the possibilities, and obviously helping those, and even for
Mhm.
training content, right? Learning
Yes.
abilities too. So,
Yes.
okay, then our big area too that a lot of our listeners are in the development space
Mm-hmm.
as well, is this has code generation,
Yeah.
right? It has bugging, it has citations that go along with it. And you referenced Copilot before.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a little more insight on Bard's ability with code generation?
Bard's code generation is, in my experience, not as sophisticated as something like Copilot yet, but it is very good at generating snippets. It's very good at generating just, hey, write me a function that does this and add comments. So that's another big thing. That is an excellent feature. It will comment what a line of code is doing, and
Cool.
um just kind of just along the same lines as reading an image, generating a description, looking at the slide of a PowerPoint of a Google presentation, adding speaker notes. It can look at a line of code and tell you what it's doing. So that is an excellent time saver, because if you're writing a lot of code,
Mhm.
adding comments, very important, but it is kind of a time sink. It's something that has to be done, but a lot of it is boilerplate. So,
Okay. And that I mean, Copilot has that same feature, so you're just going to see that with all of these
oh yeah,
that
oh yeah,
do that because it's all about the efficiency, right?
yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is that right as of right now, Google's coding assistant does a lot of the same things as Copilot, but Copilot is just a more mature technology.
And
Yeah,
that's fair, right?
that's fair. Yeah,
That's their honey hive, right?
yeah,
Where that's their main focus, and with Google and all their machine learning, who knows where that's going to go.
yeah,
So again, I want kind of going a little bit towards more so on the closing piece of this.
yeah.
Just a couple more tie-ins. You mentioned with Google doing this for a while, and Bard being able to kind of be the marketing piece that showcases a lot of this. You're able to tie in Google Maps to
Yes.
this, right? Docs, Gmail, even.
Mm-hmm.
Have you played with
Yep.
that feature at all?
Unfortunately, not as much as I would have liked to. Most of my emails are done in the Microsoft ecosystem.
Yeah,
So, a lot of so I've done some like cursory kind of, hey, put this in an email
cool.
kind of features, but in terms of just most of the emails I write are part of Microsoft Office and
Makes
Outlook.
sense.
So,
Makes sense. That's what the company uses, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
okay, cool. And then, obviously creating tables is pretty neat. So there's a lot of features how they integrate with everything. I'm sure there's going to be plugins and extensions as
Oh yeah.
well.
Oh yeah.
So really looking forward to it and something to keep pace of. So Charles, with closing thoughts here, maybe we do this as kind of hey, looking at Bard compared to ChatGPT, right? Taking Copilot kind of out because that's a specific area, though Microsoft is getting their own Copilot to be
Mhm.
infused with their mail and everything like that. But looking at ChatGPT and Bard, obviously our popular ones right this moment. Where do you stand? What are pros and cons of each, or where are you leaning to? Which one you prefer?
So, to be honest, I have been using Bard more, and that's because it does feel just like an extension on Google search, which is what I use the most. ChatGPT is definitely tuned. It's optimized for giving human responses to your queries. Whereas Bard kind of feels like an assistant on top of Google search. And like I said, I just use Google search more than I use a chatbot. So Bard kind of fits the way that and when I say I use Bard, I mostly mean that I'm using the AI, the generative AI features that are now just a part of Google search. When you do a Google search, you get a summary block of whatever you searched for. Google searches all of the results, generates a summary, and a lot of times that's all you need, especially if in my career, in what I do, you just need a direct answer. What are the new features of Java 21? I just need a list. I don't really need a subjective interpretation. It's just what's new, what's in the latest release. So Bard as a extension of Google search is a time saver in a lot of ways. And as Google's search labs expands, that's what they're calling a lot of their experimental features. As they expand that, I'll definitely be playing around with those features as well.
That all makes sense then, right? So Google already has this built-in audience. We've all been using it for what, 20 years?
Yep.
20 years. And so with Google search being, as you mentioned, extension or integration over there, they have the knowledge graph cards that pop on up for your direct answers. And sometimes I think Google's calling it their no one right answer accessibility as well. So if the audience is already there, which is going to give them a nice piece. Have you noticed differences in hallucinations?
So I will say that ChatGPT in its responses, I don't know how to say this without anthropomorphizing it, but ChatGPT like rambles a lot. Like you give it a response and it just keeps going and going and going. Whereas if you type in something into Bard, it just gives you a paragraph and some suggested Google search links too. So honestly, I kind of like I said, I just find that more useful.
Okay.
Like again, my line of work, what I do, I want direct answers. I want potentially a reference to the documentation rather than like just what does this technology actually do? How does it actually behave? No subjective interpretation. What is going on here with this rule? So Bard, in my experience, works a little better with that.
Okay. And that makes sense, right? You're an educator, you're a content builder, right? And obviously you want to help, your learners as fast as you can with a direct answer.
Yeah.
That's accurate. Last question for you then as we wrap up here. So resources and citations. You kind of mentioned it a little bit there at your last response. Google better at providing sources from your experience?
Yes. Just because ChatGPT kind of does, as you said, it can hallucinate a source because what does a language model do? It knows what a response looks like. It doesn't know what the response is. So if there is no response, the language model makes one up that looks like a reference, as opposed to Google, which has the built-in advantage of I turned your text prompt into a Google search. Click here to do a Google search, and that will find you sources.
And they're right there.
Yeah. For now, until the entire internet becomes articles hallucinated by ChatGPT, which is another problem, but not directly. But not that's that's another issue. We'll talk about that later.
We'll get in our microbyte. We'll
Yeah,
put it
no
all out.
microbyte on that one.
Yeah,
So-
perfect. Well, thanks, Charles, and for our listeners, try out both. You know, a lot of my takeaway here is you may just what you do on a day-to-day basis may fit more into Bard versus, you know, ChatGPT may fit in more to what you do. Not to mention the other ones that are out there.
Yes.
So try it out, see what you like. I think we're just in such an exciting time. Don't limit yourself to just one of these
Yes.
tools.
Yes.
So
Try open source models. Try open source models as well.
there
There's
you go.
lots of them out there.
A ton. It's surprising how many there are, but also not surprising. But Charles, as always, wonderful. I appreciate you giving us the rundown on Google Bard, and I'll let you get to it. We'll talk again soon here.
All right. Looking forward to it.
All right. And for Rich Bowers, this is Corporate Bytes. Everybody take care. Thank you so much. Thanks, Charles.
Bye, everybody.